Dozens of UN peacekeepers killed in Democratic Republic of the Congo attack. Dakar, Senegal. Rebels attacked the United Nations peacekeeping base in eastern Congo, killing at least 14 peacekeepers and wounding 53 others in the deadliest single assault on a UN mission in recent history, officials said Friday. Jean-Pierre Lacroix said he was outraged by the attack, saying on Twitter that medical evacuations were ongoing from the scene. The peacekeepers were mainly from Tanzania. At least 5 Congolese soldiers also were killed in the attack Thursday evening that was blamed on one of the region's deadliest rebel groups. "It's a very huge attack, certainly the worst in recent memory," Deputy UN spokesman Farhan Haq said. The UN peacekeeping mission in Congo is the largest and most expensive in the world and is aimed at calming a number of armed groups in the vast, mineral-rich Central African nation. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called the attack a war crime and urged Congolese authorities to swiftly investigate. He expressed outrage and utter heartbreak. At least 70 armed groups are fighting in the eastern part of the country, CBS News' Pamela Falk reports from the UN. Despite the presence of thousands of peacekeepers, the stronger militant groups in the region terrorize communities and control weakly governed areas of the country, where millions of civilians have been forced to flee the fighting. The peacekeeping base is located about 27 miles from the town of Beni, which has been repeatedly hit by the Allied Democratic Forces rebel group. The base is home to the mission's Rapid Intervention Force, which has a rare mandate to go on the offensive, according to the UN-supported radio Okapi. The radio station, citing military sources, said the fighting lasted 4 hours. Nearly 300 peacekeepers have been killed since the UN mission arrived in Congo in 1999, according to peacekeeping data. Congo, a country the size of Western Europe, has seen immeasurable cruelty and greed as a result of its vast mineral resources. The nation suffered through one of the most brutal colonial reigns ever known, before undergoing decades of corrupt dictatorship. Back-to-back civil wars later drew in a number of neighboring countries. Many rebel groups have come and gone during the UN mission's years of operation, at times invading the regional capital, Goma. One of the greatest threats now comes from the Andorran Franks. The rebels once aimed to overthrow President Yoweri Museveni's regime in neighboring Uganda. By the 1990s, they had established themselves in Congo. While the fighters are mainly Muslim, experts say there are no proven links between the rebels and other extremist organizations in Africa. The Andorran Franks intensified attacks several years ago, and human rights groups say at least 1,000 people have been killed in the last 3 years. About a dozen of the rebels have been sentenced to death on charges related to participating in an insurrection movement. The UN mission in 2006 helped carry out Congo's first free and fair elections in 46 years, but since then the winner of that vote, President Joseph Kabila, has become further entrenched in his post. Anger has grown as presidential elections originally set for late last year have been repeatedly delayed. The government has blamed insecurity as a factor in the delays. 14 peacekeepers in Congo slain in an attack the UN chief calls a war crime. Democratic Republic of Congo, a deliberate attack on United Nations peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of Congo constitutes a war crime, and was the worst attack on peacekeepers in the organization's recent history. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said Friday. 14 peacekeepers were killed and 53 others were injured in the Thursday evening attack, the UN's peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, MONUSCO said in a statement. Mission officials believe the attack was carried out by the rebel group Allied Democratic Forces and Andorran Franks, according to the statement. At least 5 members of Congo's armed forces also were slain. Guterres said. Attacks against those who are working in the service of peace and stability in the Democratic Republic of the Congo are cowardly and constitute serious violations, said Maman Sidikou, the Secretary-General's special representative in the DRC, who leads its mission there. MONUSCO will take all actions to ensure that the perpetrators are held accountable and brought to justice. The attack took place in the eastern province of North Kivu, which borders Rwanda and Uganda, Guterres said. Earlier, Guterres had said 12 UN peacekeepers, all of them Tanzanians, had been killed and at least 40 others injured. "I condemn this attack unequivocally," he said. These deliberate attacks against UN peacekeepers are unacceptable and constitute a war crime. I call on the DRC authorities to investigate this incident and swiftly bring the perpetrators to justice. There must be no impunity for such assaults. Here or anywhere else. Worst attack in recent history. The largest of the UN's 15 peacekeeping missions is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with more than 22,000 personnel. This is the worst attack on UN peacekeepers in the organization's recent history, Guterres added. It is another indication of the enormous sacrifices made by troop-contributing countries in the service of global peace. These brave women and men are putting their lives on the line every day across the world to serve peace and to protect civilians. The eastern part of Congo has been embroiled in violence since 1994, when Hutu forces crossed the border from Rwanda fearing reprisals following the genocide there. UK Ambassador to the UN Matthew Rycroft said he was really shocked by the attack, not just on them as individuals, but on the very essence of UN peacekeeping. Earlier this year, 2 UN experts investigating human rights violations and their Congolese interpreter were found dead in the DRC. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley visited a camp for displaced people in the Democratic Republic of Congo in October. The UN says nearly 4.5 million Congolese have been forced to flee from their homes, and many are living in displaced camps. Rebel attack in East Congo leaves 14 peacekeepers dead. UN says suspected Islamist gunmen attacked the United Nations base in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, killing at least 14 peacekeepers and 5 Congolese soldiers. The UN said, in the deadliest attack in the mineral-rich region in months. A further 53 peacekeepers were injured in the late Thursday assault in Beni territory in North Kivu province. The UN mission said on its website. The assailants are suspected of belonging to the Allied Democratic Forces, and the attack was followed by protracted fighting. It said, Congo, almost the size of Western Europe, and the world's largest source of cobalt, has for 2 decades struggled to defeat dozens of local and foreign militias in the east, which has deposits of tin, gold and coltan. The Andorran Franks, a Ugandan Islamist armed group, has been active in Congo since 1993. Trump warns he might increase the penalties on Wells Fargo. President Donald Trump tweeted Friday that the government may increase planned fines against Wells Fargo and Company, the bank that's been embroiled in multiple scandals since last year. Fines and penalties against Wells Fargo Bank for their bad acts against their customers and others will not be dropped, the president said on Twitter. Mick Mulvaney, picked by Trump to be acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, last month imposed 30-day freezes on regulatory actions and hiring, while he conducts a review of the Bureau's operations. Reuters reported Thursday that the CFPB was reviewing whether it should move forward with a possible settlement proposal in which Wells Fargo would pay tens of millions of dollars over wrongly charged mortgage fees. Trump said in his tweet that the government will pursue penalties against the bank. If anything, he said, those would be substantially increased. Government regulators, including the CFPB and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, have been scrutinizing issues in the bank's consumer business dating back to at least 2016. Wells Fargo paid $185 million in fines and refunds to customers to smooth over government findings that its employees opened millions of accounts without customers' permission. The bank is also being investigated for charging customers fees to lock in certain rates on mortgage loans and for billing customers for auto insurance they didn't want or need. Discussions between Wells Fargo and officials of the consumer agency haven't yet advanced into negotiations over what the bank should pay to resolve the mortgage lending issue. According to a person with knowledge of the matter, Erica Reynoso, Wells Fargo spokeswoman, declined to comment. The bank said last month in a regulatory filing it has begun refunding some of the $98 million that it determined was wrongfully billed to customers. The charges, known as mortgage rate lock extension fees, were assessed to 110,000 Wells Fargo customers for approximately 3.5 years starting in September 2013.